We are back. It's our final segment this morning with Professor Peter Haslag. He's a professor of finance over at Vanderbilt. It's good to have you on. Thanks for coming on this morning. Yeah. And just as we're talking about people moving to the area, a lot of folks have picked up, and it's odd, during the pandemic and moved. Which, you know, sometimes you're like, well, that's a tough time to move. I mean, you really want to move during a pandemic. But I know a bunch of people who did for a lot of different reasons. Maybe you can go into those. What are the reasons then specifically? And we've touched on some, but fill it out with your research. Why are people choosing to move, especially during what could be a difficult time during a pandemic?
Absolutely. And so we were lucky enough to partner with Unigroup, and they have Mayflower and United Van Lines moving. Yeah, and so they provide this data. They've always had this survey about why did you move? Okay, so it has some pre-selected options. There's family reasons, job reasons,
those are the two
lifestyle, retirement.
What would you say the number one reason?
Family is actually number one.
Family's number one?
And then
to move closer to family or to get away from them. Okay, but then
then jobs,
Okay.
And so and then they were also smart enough in the summer of 2020 to start asking people, hey, was this move because of COVID? And so what we were able to see is who moved, or what percentage of people were moving because of COVID, and it hovers kind of between 10 and 20% of moves, which may, depending on what you think beforehand, that might seem large or small, but I felt like it was a very large number.
Yeah.
And that has stayed steady, more or less, dropped off a little bit through the end of 2021. So people are still moving.
The elements of being COVID, when you say COVID, it's not necessarily the disease factor, it's the factor that they've all of a sudden realized they have these other options because COVID opened. Look, not all was bad about COVID. I mean, I hate to say that, COVID, I wish the pandemic never came, but it opened our eyes to certain things, like the ability to work from home. And also gave people an idea of, you know what, I hate my job, or I don't dig it. I could die. I'm going to, moving forward, do stuff I want to do instead of spinning my wheels in a job I don't care for.
I think that's like a perfect summary of how I view it. It's like, you have this job flexibility that comes from work from home. What do I do with that? How can I satisfy and be happier? And then also, like, your life changed and you went through a very stressful and tough time, and so you reevaluate. A lot of people reevaluated and said, this is not what I want in terms of jobs. So we've seen like the Great Resignation, and part of that I think has to do with the reassessment of what we value. So I think those are the two reasons. But going back to kind of the research, what we saw was that people were moving a lot less because of jobs. So I think people either had job security or didn't, and so they didn't need to relocate for that. So there wasn't a lot of churn in the labor market at that time. And then we saw a lot of people move because of lifestyle. So I think this goes back to that second point of like, hey, this is the way I want to live my life now. So we saw this big increase in people saying lifestyle is the main reason I want to move. And then we looked across income brackets, so the demographics, and we saw this was largely from the higher income individuals. So they're the ones that are more likely to have remote work opportunities. They're the ones that have the resources to make them. And so those two reasons, I think that's where we see the preferences start to play out.
So it's people with money too sometimes that have the better option to be able to do it.
Of course, I mean, that's not shocking perhaps.
Well, moving is expensive.
Yes, that's true.
It is expensive. Let's take a call from Jim. Jim, good morning. Hi, Jim.
Good morning.
Morning.
So, I make a comment. I've been doing my own research on why people are moving here for about 5 years, kind of anecdotal research, but I'll encounter somebody at the library or Panera or wherever, and I'll see a car tag that's out of state, and I'll ask them, for example, what do we got to do to get you people from Illinois, or what do we got to do to get you people from New York to quit moving here? And, it's amazing. Most of the time I get a pretty friendly response, and consistently the answer's been things like, well, you got to let the crime get really out of control in Nashville, which seems like Nashville's working on. You got to institute a state income tax. You've got to have lines and queues and a lot worse congestion than you've got, and then we'll quit moving here. So it's been my observation that people aren't so much moving here as they're moving away from other places. They're running from other places that have got problems and everything.
That was a great observation. I do the same thing, Jim. I'll ask people if you're visiting here, if you've moved, and well, that's the thing. You don't want it to get so bad that all of a sudden people don't come here because of crime. Do we want people not to move here? I don't think so.
No, I mean there are costs to it, right?
Yeah.
But on net, it's a good.
Well, I remember years ago, my family and I grew up a good part of my life in Oregon, And there was a period of time there where a lot of Californians were moving up, and whatever the issue was, it was getting crowded, and Oregonians kind of liked their space. The governor at the time decided to post all these signs at the state line. And it said, you know, welcome to Oregon, and then in big bold letters, enjoy your visit, and underlined it, meaning the idea is, you come visit, spend the money, and then leave. And you know what? I'd actually be pretty good with that. If a lot of people come here, tourists, spend their money, and leave, and a lot of them do.
That's true.
That's what happened. I'm not sure how much I want them all to stay.
Yeah. I mean, there's good benefits that come from it. There's this, it's more stable, right? So like, I think one thing that happened during the pandemic is tourism dropped off.
Yep.
Everybody stopped traveling. So you are insulated when you have it, but you're also exposed to the risk that it goes away. Mm-hmm. When they're living here, it's costly to move, right? We just said that. And so there's a more predictable flow of consumption. And so.
Well, and companies pay attention to this, because let's look at this. Do you believe that, you know, companies like Oracle, Amazon and stuff, they're aware of some of the research of what you've done? They've chosen to come here to Middle Tennessee because why?
Absolutely. They want to attract talented workers, and they want to attract young workers who might have a desire to have a temporary stay and then move somewhere else. And so location is important to A, bring them in, but B, keep them. And so they're looking for, here's how we're going to build out our workforce over the next 25 years. Mm-hmm. Here's what we need to do to get the right people. And so they're choosing these locations to try to satisfy.
So they're not only choosing it because I guess they think maybe with population there's a core group of a workforce available to them, maybe educated for certain things. But their thinking is, if we go there, Nashville is such a hot and desirable location, we will be able to attract, you know, qualified applicants who would want to come here rather than some other major city.
Absolutely, and retain them. The retention part is...
They'll come and then stay.
Exactly.
It's not like they're just going to come and...
Right. Because, yeah, you have this problem where, like, if you set up a company in a place people don't want to be, they might be willing to go there. They might accept that higher salary for a while, but if there's no amenities, if people don't enjoy that, there's only so long you'd be willing to accept that without a significant increase in your salary. So being in the market that is desirable helps you retain people, and turnover is costly. So
it's true. I've lived it. You have. Well, you're a young man, and you moved here 5 years ago, and you just said you plan on staying here. And with me, I mean, this city's changed over the 20+ years I've been here, and I could have gone just about anywhere. I could be in another market if I wanted to, but I just decided to stay. It was before we're in the situation we are here now, but now I'm even more intent. I mean, I love living here. Some of the changes I'm not thrilled with, but a lot of them I do like. I mean, gosh, before I got here, just on the sports front, we didn't have the Titans. We had just gotten the Predators, and that creates a major market feel. But yeah, I want to stay here. And so the idea is a lot of people will move here and choose to stay. It's not, this is the type of market, even though it's not a major market in the realm of top 10, people come here and say, I can stay here and make a decent living and never leave.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't do that in, say, my first TV market in Medford, Oregon. Okay, I mean, I could have stayed there, but you've got a cap on how far you can go there financially in TV news.
Yeah.
I was out of there after 2 years. Here, I decided to stay.
Yeah, and I think the labor market is building out the upward mobility for the city as well. I mean, you're expanding, you're bringing in like the right types of people in terms to get a strong labor market. Yeah. So it's broad. It's fairly well educated, so there should be this kind of continued.
Well, meaning that you can come here and start low, and then but there's room for growth, or whatever along those lines.
Yeah, and if you're a company, if you locate here, you can kind of fill out all of the needs you have in terms of like skill levels that you would have across building out a good company.
All right, so just as we wrap it up then, in terms of Middle Tennessee and what we've seen, you think it's, because of the pandemic, going to level some, but we're not going to drop back down. We're, if anything, we will be back at the level of growth which was crazy before the pandemic hit.
Yeah, so I think in terms of like migration we'll level off. I think in terms of real estate prices with mortgage rates increasing, we'll start to see a tapering. I don't expect a correction or anything like that in the housing prices, but I do think that growth will taper off.
But you do think, I mean, we know the interest rates are going to go up.
Yeah.
And so that means it'll cost more to borrow.
Yeah.
Which means people may not be so willing to pay $100,000 over lift price for a house.
But if you have the migration, if for some reason this migration does continue strongly, and you have people coming from more expensive markets, then they don't necessarily need to borrow to get the house. And so you could still see that pressure if migration continues.
And that's exactly what's happened. You know, having come here originally from Los Angeles, you know, over the years, I still had this image. LA is a lot more expensive than Nashville. I thought, yeah, of recent years, I bet you the rent's kind of comparable now, or home prices. Still, a home here that you can buy for maybe $500,000 will cost you $1 million in the Valley in Los Angeles. So if those people there are selling that, they can come here and buy themselves a nice place and afford to pay, if they really want it, well above list price. And that's what we see happening.
Yeah, and not have a mortgage payment if they had the equity in the house.
And have no mortgage payment if they have that much. Why wouldn't you maybe do that?
Yeah.
Except you don't have a beach here.
That's true.
Darn. We
go to the lakes.
We have great lakes and rivers and all of that. So, hey, by the way, the courses you teach, it's in this realm? I'm just wondering, the young people, they're going into, what is it?
I teach mergers and acquisitions,
okay.
And then I teach the principles finance course to the undergraduates. So I just had a general interest in migration during COVID, and so I've been going down this rabbit hole for a little while.
Okay, and the students that are in the courses that you teach are going to go into business. Is that basically it? Mm-hmm. Are they any good?
Yeah, they're great.
Good. Just want to make sure we have a good core. Those are our leaders of tomorrow.
Yeah,
our business
and I hope they stay here.
Titans. And they probably will. This is a great place to be. Hey, listen, Professor, thank you for coming on.
Thanks
so much. It's a good conversation, and it's an exciting place to live. So
absolutely.
Best of luck at Vandy.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break. I'm going to wrap things up right after this. Stay with us.